Hello, and welcome to our podcast episode number 96, The Terrifying World Where Every Sound Could Be Deadly. Timothy, and as always, here with me, my old friend Thomas. Tonight we are going to discuss a film called A Quiet Place. Be aware, spoilers ahead. A Quiet Place is a 2018 American post-apocalyptic horror film directed by John Krasinski about a family who live in isolation due to blind extraterrestrial creatures with an acute sense of hearing. The plot revolves around their struggle for survival and raising children while avoiding detection from these creatures. Well, Thomas, what's your take on A Quiet Place?
Well, Timothy, I must say that this film doesn't exactly tickle my fancy. I don't usually enjoy these cheap thrillers, especially when they try too hard to scare you with some random creature lurking in the shadows. But I will give credit where it's due. The premise itself is quite interesting. Imagine living in a world where even a single mistake could mean your death. That's a rather compelling concept for a horror movie. However, I feel like the execution fell short for me. The film tries to build up suspense and tension, but it just felt forced at times. And those jump scares, they were so predictable, I almost got bored waiting for them to happen. Don't get me wrong. There are some moments that did manage to catch me off guard.
Hold on a moment, Tom. Let me interject something here. You see, I found A Quiet Place to be an incredibly well-crafted film. Not only does it excel in creating tension and suspense, but it also manages to evoke genuine emotion from the audience. The characters are relatable and engaging, making you truly care about their plight. The world building is also commendable, providing enough context without overloading the viewers with unnecessary details. And as for the creature design, I found them to be quite frightening, adding another layer of realism to the already eerie atmosphere. Yes, there are some cliched tropes present in the film, but overall, I believe Krasinski did an exceptional job in bringing this post-apocalyptic horror story to life. What about you, Thomas? Do you have any thoughts on the creature design or world-building aspect of A Quiet Place?
Well, Timothy, I must admit that the creature design was one aspect of the film that did catch my attention. They look quite terrifying with their sharp teeth and impenetrable armor plating. But in terms of world building, I think they could delve deeper into the origin of these creatures. It's just suddenly there's an alien invasion. End of story. What happened to the rest of humanity? Where did these creatures come from? These are questions that still linger in my mind after watching the movie. Also, I found the characters' survival instincts to be a bit too perfect. A family living alone in this post-apocalyptic world would have faced numerous challenges, but they seem to navigate their way through it with ease. I understand that films like this are meant to be an escape from reality, but sometimes a little bit of realism can really elevate the storytelling and make it more believable for me as a viewer. But moving on, one thing I did appreciate about A Quiet Place was its use of sound design. The silence in the film is almost like another character itself, looming over every scene, creating an eerie atmosphere that keeps you on edge throughout the entire movie. The moments where sound does emerge, whether it's a rustling leaf or a character accidentally dropping something, it becomes so intensely loud and jarring, heightening the tension in the scene. That said, I still stand by my initial opinion that A Quiet Place isn't really my cup of tea when it comes to horror movies. So Timothy, now it's your turn. What was your favorite scene from A Quiet Place, and why?
Well, Thomas, one scene that truly stood out for me was the birth sequence. The way Krasinski directed the entire sequence, starting with Evelyn accidentally stepping on a nail and smashing a photo frame, to the ensuing chaos as she tries to safely deliver her baby in the middle of a creature-infested world, was simply masterful. The use of slow-motion close-ups and tight shots effectively conveyed the sense of urgency and desperation that the characters were going through, while also highlighting the delicate beauty of life despite the dire circumstances. The scene culminates with the baby's cry, which attracts a creature towards them, creating an intense fight for survival. I think this sequence perfectly encapsulates what A Quiet Place is all about. The primal instinct to protect one's family at any cost, even if it means sacrificing oneself in the process. Now, moving on to a more lighthearted topic. Did you know that the sound of the creature's footsteps in A Quiet Place was actually created by the sounds of director John Krasinski and star Emily Blunt walking on different types of flooring? The team recorded their footsteps on wood tile and even carpet. Then played them back at various speeds and pitches to create the distinctive sound that we hear throughout the film. This attention to detail is a testament to Krasinski's dedication to crafting an immersive and believable world for his characters and audience alike. So, Thomas, what do you think about this behind-the-scenes trivia? Do you think it adds to your appreciation of the film's sound design? Or does it take away from its overall impact in any way?
Well, I must admit that the attention to detail is commendable, Timothy. It's always fascinating to learn about how filmmakers create iconic sounds and effects within their films, especially when it comes to horror movies like A Quiet Place. However, while the behind-the-scenes trivia does add a layer of interest to the film's sound design, I still stand by my initial assessment that the storytelling could have been improved upon. The plot holes and unanswered questions I mentioned earlier still linger in the back of my mind when I think about A Quiet Place. But moving on, one aspect of the film that I can't deny is its stellar casting. Emily Blunt and John Krasinski both deliver exceptional performances. As parents desperate to protect their family at all costs, the chemistry between them is palpable and their actions feel genuine, which helps ground the otherwise far-fetched premise of the film. What did you think about the actors' portrayals of their characters, Timothy? Did you find any particular performance to stand out for you?
Well, Thomas, I must say that Emily Blunt's portrayal of Evelyn Abbott truly stood out for me. She delivers an incredibly nuanced performance, transitioning seamlessly between the roles of a protective mother and a resourceful survivor. Her ability to convey fear, determination, and even moments of vulnerability throughout the film is simply remarkable. In particular, I found her performance during the birth sequence to be particularly moving, as mentioned earlier. She manages to convey the immense pain she's enduring while still maintaining a level-headedness that inspires admiration and admiration. As for John Krasinski's portrayal of Lee Abbott, I think he brings a sense of relatable vulnerability to a character who's otherwise portrayed as a stoic protector. He effortlessly conveys the internal conflict of a father torn between his desire to protect his family and his need to provide for them, even if it means putting himself at risk. His quiet moments of reflection and self-doubt add depth to what could have easily been a one-dimensional character. Overall, I think the chemistry between Blunt and Krasinski is genuine and believable, which in turn elevates the entire film. Their performances are truly commendable and help carry A Quiet Place despite its flaws. So, Thomas, do you have any other actors or characters from A Quiet Place that you'd like to discuss further?
Well, Tim, I must admit that you've convinced me somewhat about the performances in A Quiet Place. However, I stand by my opinion that the storytelling could have been improved upon, especially when it comes to addressing some of the plot holes and unanswered questions that plague the film. One area where I think A Quiet Place did have a significant impact on the horror genre was in its influence on other films and television series that followed it. In fact, several projects have been inspired by the film's unique premise of silence being crucial to survival, including the critically acclaimed Korean thriller A Quiet Place, directed by and starring. The story follows a family who must navigate through a post-apocalyptic world where sound is the ultimate enemy. Much like A Quiet Place, the film utilizes tense silence, punctuated by moments of intense, terror to create a palpable atmosphere of dread and suspense. The characters must rely on their senses of sight and touch to survive, as even the slightest sound could spell disaster for them. Another notable example is the horror-themed reality show, which premiered on a popular streaming platform last year. The premise revolves around a group of contestants who are left alone in an isolated cabin in complete silence, and their survival is put to the test as they face increasingly terrifying challenges. Each week, one contestant is eliminated based on their ability to stay quiet and avoid triggering any sort of sound-based traps or monsters that lurk within the cabin. The show's success led to a spin-off series which takes place in a variety of different silent settings, such as an abandoned hospital or a haunted library. So, Timothy, what do you think about these A Quiet Place-inspired projects? Do they successfully build upon the original film's premise and contribute something new to the horror genre? Or do they merely capitalize on its popularity without offering anything truly innovative or terrifying?
Well, Thomas will be honest. While I appreciate your points about A Quiet Place not being perfect and its influence on subsequent projects, I still stand by my original opinion of the film. It was an entertaining and suspenseful thriller that effectively utilized silence to heighten the sense of fear and danger. The performances, particularly by Emily Blunt and John Krasinski, were indeed commendable and added a layer of depth to their characters' struggles for survival. As for the plot holes and unanswered questions you mentioned, I believe some level of ambiguity can actually enhance the film's overall impact and leave room for viewers' interpretation. And now let's wrap up our discussion on A Quiet Place. In conclusion, while the film may not have been perfect, it managed to create a unique and chilling atmosphere that kept me hooked till the end. The performances by Emily Blunt and John Krasinski were truly remarkable, elevating what could have been just another survival horror movie into something more. A Quiet Place is an intense and suspenseful thriller that will leave you on the edge of your seat from start to finish. So, Thomas, do you have any final thoughts or comments before we wrap up today's episode?
Well, Timothy, while I still stand by my initial criticism of A Quiet Place, I can't deny that it did manage to evoke strong emotions in me during the course of our discussion. It's a testament to John Krasinski's direction and the cast's performances that, despite my reservations, the film managed to keep me engaged throughout. As for my final thoughts on A Quiet Place, while it isn't a masterpiece in my opinion, it does deliver on its main goal. To create tension and suspense through the power of silence, the movie has its flaws. But as I mentioned earlier, some level of ambiguity can actually enhance the viewing experience for certain audiences. So thank you again, Timothy, for joining me today. And thank you, dear viewers, for tuning in to our latest episode of Tim and Tom's Film Nights. Remember to comment, subscribe, and share this video with your friends who love a good horror flick. Until next time, stay quiet and don't let the creatures hear you scream.